and welcome to the National Gallery. I'd like to begin by acknowledging, of course, the Ngambri and the Ngunnawal people on whose beautiful country this gallery stands and whose beautiful works are actually part of Ceremony, the 4th National Indigenous Art Triennial. My name is Hetty Perkins and I'm an Aranda and Kalkadoon curator, and I've worked on the Ceremony exhibition with my colleagues Kelly Cole, Lurita and Warramunga woman, Aidan Hartshorn, a Waggaloo man, and Peter Johnson, who's now one of the mob. I'm delighted to be here today and to, pardon me, I think I'm losing my voice. It's been a busy time. I'm going to now ask the artists to introduce themselves. But before they do that, I'll also ask them to self-describe for members of our audience who are blind or have low vision. And when the artists talk about their works, we'll also talk about that in a way that everyone can get to enjoy these beautiful artworks. I beg your pardon. So I am Aboriginal woman. I've got dark hair. I'm old enough to know better. I'm about 56, wearing glasses, and I'm looking a little bit nervous but very happy and excited to be here. And wearing black, of course. And now I'd like to first of all introduce the wonderful Hayley Miller Barker, who many of you would have seen her film premiere.
Baker.
Huh?
Baker. What did I say? Barker.
Oh. Hayley. I said I was nervous, right? Anyway, Hayley, please introduce you. And don't forget to self-describe.
Hello, everyone. I'm Hayley Miller Baker. I'm a Gunditjmara woman and Jabberong woman. I live in Naarm, Melbourne. And I have short brown hair, olive skin, and I'm wearing a white shirt today. My practice is mostly photographic collage and has now introduced film, which I'm really excited about. This is my first film in Ceremony, and I am working on this year a second film. I'd now like to introduce Guti Yunupingu and also Guti's mum, Louise Balponga Memuru, who's here. And I have been remiss in not introducing Jodie Barney, who is a language consultant, and of course Mandy, who is a fixture at the National Gallery.
Hi everyone, my name's Guti. I come from Yirrkala, which is in the Northern Territory. I flew a long way to be here today. Flew to Cairns, then to Sydney, then to Canberra. My film is about my country. I'm a filmmaker. I work a lot with my community to make sure that I'm getting accurate cultural information to include in my films so that I'm able to share them with other people. I'm nearly 25. I'm tall. I'm an Aboriginal man. That's my introduction. Very dark skin.
Thank you. Thank you. And last but not least, Dylan River.
Hey everyone, my name is Dylan. I'm a Kaditch man from north of Alice Springs, but I grew up in Alice Springs, and I'm a filmmaker. It's what I do for my day job. but it's also my life. And I'm here because Hetty decided it was a good idea to print a 6-metre photograph of my eye on a wall.
And I think I've been proven right. I just have to say that. I wanted to also reiterate that if you have questions for our artists today, and they welcome the questions from the audience, they also have questions for each other, so we will ask some of those too. But please ensure that your phone and device is turned to silent, and you can use the gallery's free Wi-Fi and go to slido.com. And enter the event code, which is on the screen. There it is. It is 679599. And then we'll answer your questions towards the end of the session. So I thought, so by starting off, I think maybe we could talk. Hayley, did you want to talk a bit about your work in ceremony, your wonderful work that, of course, it's premiered in ceremony and was embargoed for a very long time because we had to delay the show because of COVID. So thank you for your patience as well in that regard.
Yes, so my film is titled Nick Dynasty, and it's my first short film that I've ever made. I've never been involved in film before, so it was a really good learning process. The film is about essentially a contemporary connection to spiritual space, as a space that I think Indigenous people are quite privy to, of having spirits talk to them and having the ability to talk back to spirits, whether that is vocal or it's just a sense. So the film is about this woman who I play in the film, just an everyday ritual in the afternoon at the end of the day of connecting to that space and sitting comfortably in that space. And it is based on foundations of truth that I practice each day, but they're abstracted and essences of horror genre and thriller is they're brought into it for basically the cinema effect.
The work title, which I keep stumbling over, Nick Dynasty.
Nick Dynasty.
Nick Dynasty means it's. Can you just sort of explain the title and what it means and how it relates to the work?
So the title came, I would say, pretty on par with the making of the film. It didn't come before it and it didn't come after it, but I knew that the title of the film had to have something to do about a shadow space. And so this film, Nick Dynasty, the act of Nick Dynasty is when flowers and plants close up at specific times of the day, whether that be nighttime or morning, to protect themselves from insects, bugs, higher plants that could overcrowd them, and so they close up for protection generally during nighttime. And so I thought that was a really good connection between what's happening in the film and how we protect ourselves at different times of the day. Generally things go bump in the night, and so how we react to that at nightfall.
Thank you, Hayley. Guti, could you share a little more about your work and describe for all of the audience what it looks like and what it's about, please?
think it's very important to show the connection of my saltwater people. We are saltwater people, and I show the waves crashing up onto a beach, and this is because our totem is the crocodile. And so I wanted people to see what the crocodiles might see when they're in the surf. So I wanted to connect all of that to my community and my culture and my language. So it includes the crocodile totem, the waves, the beach, the salt water, and also I've tried to work in cultural knowledge that I have from the stories of my people with my computer technology and cutting and editing film.
Yes, it's a wonderful work, and I really enjoy watching people watching your work, you know. And there's a section in your film, Guti, where you're painting up. Are you able to talk about that a little bit more?
So there is a special rock that's found on our country, and we grind that rock, and it's part of the preparation for ceremony. It's a yellow rock, and that's part of our link also to the crocodile totem. My community is in Boima, and it's part of our cultural respect to the connection to land. And as part of my film, I do include the crocodile, and it's very important. When we see the crocodiles in the surf, we watch their behaviour. And that tells us an awful lot about the crocodile. It also helps us to link to our spiritual practice of celebration as well.
Beautiful, thank you. Thank you. Dylan, could you tell us now a little bit about your work and describe it for us, please?
Yeah, well, you asked me, was it last year or the year before, to be a part of ceremony and to make something, with the brief being ceremony. And for me, that was a very daunting thing. You know, I feel that when I think about ceremony, I think about disconnection as much as I think about connection. And unlike Guti, you know, my sense of ceremony is much less of a traditional sense. And so, you know, I knew I wanted to take a photograph, not a film work. I wanted to differentiate the two things. And in working in film, I've been around a lot of archival photos and watching series like First Australians and stuff. And I noticed in these photographs that, you know, of old men and women in kind of that first sort of contact times, they were taken against these colonial walls, so like a mud brick wall or, you know, sandstone or something. And if you look really closely at them photos, you can see that they're not in a studio. You know, in the reflection of their eyes, you can see country. You can see other buildings. You can see other people. And it was really haunting to me. It was something that I've thought about for many years and didn't know how I would represent that. But this was the opportunity for ceremony to do something with that. And so my initial idea was to go back to my country, which is north of Alice Springs. It's now on a station called Murray's Downs and sort of spreads through the Davenport Ranges. If anyone remembers the Peter Valconio case that happened, it's right near there, basically. And I wanted to go back onto my country, but now that it's a cattle station, I actually need to ring the cattle station and ask for permission to go out there. And so I didn't do that. I went, I don't want to call them and ask to go out there. And in the time frame I had, I thought, well, I'll just do the photo in Alice Springs. But Alice Springs is my country. It's where I was born. It's where I grew up. It's where I feel most connected to, but that's not my ancestors' country. And so I felt wrong printing a photo of Alice Springs in the reflection of my eye to have here. And so I thought about where that disconnection started for me and for my family, and the place that is really poignant for a lot of half-caste Aboriginal kids in Alice Springs, and my grandmother included, was the bungalow, the telegraph station, which is where they created a home for Aboriginal kids, and it's the place where they started not being able to speak language. My great-grandmother could speak language, but she refused to speak it around my grandmother. And so for me, ceremony is a difficult thing, but it's a disconnected thing, and for me it started there.
Thanks, Dylan. Hayley, you started out as a painter. Your family have a long... you've got a lot of artists in the family, including your beautiful daughter, who's 4, Maeve. What compelled you to make the transition from painting to photography and then, of course, to film?
I guess I've always used a camera, even for my painting, for my studies. So I studied painting for about 9 years, and then I went into my bachelor degree, and painted the whole time there too for 4 years. And once I finished that, I think that painting wasn't the medium that I could use for the complex stories that I wanted to tell. And so I sort of slipped into photography through inheriting a family archive of negatives and slides that belonged to my grandfather. And they were mostly of my mum and her sisters as kids in the 60s and 70s, growing up in suburbia, I guess it is. And so getting those negatives and those slides, I still felt that photography wasn't going to cut it with those stories still. So I started to use collage in a really constructed and meaningful way to be able to recreate imagery that looked somewhat real. But once you noticed small bits and pieces, it would trip the viewer up to realise that this was a curated story, that it was not in fact truth, and that's what photography does. It presents truth. And so from photography, I guess, it was just an extension into film. It was just adding another layer of stepping into film on top of what I could do with photography and with collage that I couldn't do with painting at that time. So it's just taking an extra step to deepen the level of storytelling. And growing up, my mother is an incredible drawer. We would have big poster paper pinned up all around our house where she would walk through the house and pick up a pencil any time of day or night and continue to add to her drawings. And my nan is an amazing landscape painter too. She actually taught me how to paint when I was probably about 4 years old. We used to go out on country and stay in a tent for 2 or 3 weeks, and we'd just sit around and paint all day and fish and just collect food. And that's where I first learnt how to paint properly. And at that age of 4, I thought I was a legit artist.
Thank you. Guti, you obviously, your family is very distinguished in many ways. I know, Louise, you're an artist too, and Guti talks about you as an inspiration. Could you tell us about the work that you do at the Mulka project and how that connects to your work as an artist?
When I first started working at the project, part of my work was to make sure that I actually understood how things worked. And particularly with celebration, it was very important, with ceremony, it was very important that I understood the intricacies of each sort of important part of the practice. And so part of my role was to make sure that I had the story accurate and to make sure that I understood the impact and that I understood the experience of the connection to the practice. I was working as part of a team, and I was learning about sound and how to edit sound. And I watched the sound bar across the bottom of the computer screen, and I could actually pick the appropriate pieces to edit and cut into the film. This all started after I finished Year 12 at school. So I graduated from Year 12 in 2015, and I started working at the project virtually straight away. So I started using film, using cameras, all during 2016. And when I was 19, I finished my first project. And that was in my community. And I still think I have so much to learn. I know I have progressed since that first project, but my parents, I think they're very proud of me. I think I'm very fortunate to have the family that I have and the rich information and cultural information that they've given to me.
It's certainly true, and a lot of the community, the Yirrkala community, has been a very powerful community for land rights and for speaking up for all of our people, not just Yolngu mob, but First Nations mob generally.
Thank you.
And speaking of family, Dylan, you also have a very strong family background. What made you've obviously grown up in the world of film and television and so on, but your first love was photography, and you've come back circle in ceremony to now taking a photograph. Can you talk to us a bit about how you found your path to becoming a filmmaker and an artist?
Yeah, absolutely. Hayley, like you were taught to paint when you were really young. I got given a camera for my 4th or 5th birthday, I think. My parents knowing the photos wouldn't turn out very well, but they give it to me anyway. And then I think my next birthday I got another one, and then always getting disposable cameras, and we've got all those photos in an album now, and they're all out of focus. And but it's interesting. It's sort of my perspective at that age, and what I want to take photos of. But I guess that led from my grandmother, Freda Glynn, started this, or was one of the founders of the Central Australian Aboriginal Media Association. And I think she founded that on the basis of her dispossession and disconnection to ceremony. She saw in Alice Springs that the old ways were dying out, the old language, old Aranda was getting lost, and she wanted a way to preserve that, to record that. And so through that, my auntie, my father, Rachel, people were able to work at Karma and become filmmakers. My dad was taught by someone where he tells this story of being told the camera is a weapon. It fights racism, it fights our disconnection. And he's taught me that. It's probably the most important thing he's taught me, and the importance of film and the moving image, and how we not only entertain, but we can fight what's going on in our lives and protest what we want to say. So when I was 18, I left high school, and I got my first job at Karma as an intern there, and was basically just given freedom, given a camera. There wasn't a lot happening there at the time, so I just taught myself while I was there. A lot of YouTube videos. I didn't go to film school. I learned to make films on YouTube, I think. And so I'm 29 now. I've been at it for 11 years, and it's actually taken me, as much as I was taught how important storytelling is and what the camera can do, it's taken me 11 years to get over the technical aspects of making films and the timelines and the waveforms of the sound, and trying to, now I feel very comfortable that I don't need to think about any of that, and story comes first and foremost.
Thank you all, that's wonderful. Guti, did you want to ask Hayley? You had a question for Hayley?
So in your work, you're preparing for ceremony. What is it that they're using? I believe it's charcoal, but what is the importance of that charcoal in the preparation for ceremony? And you're covering your hands in it, and you can hear the crackling of the charcoal. What significance does that have in the ceremony, the spirit ceremony?
So I wanted to look at ceremony from a contemporary point of view while also connecting traditionally. So the steps that I'm taking in the film are also symbolic acts of care for the dead. And so when I'm stepping out of the shower, that's a cleansing. The fire is a smoking ceremony. Collecting that charcoal in traditional ceremony for my mob, we use white ochre in special mourning ceremony. So I wanted to use the charcoal for its colour black to act as a symbolic gesture of mourning for contemporary and modern ways of mourning, when we wear black to funerals. It also symbolises burial and cremation. So with all of those together, the way that I powder it into a liquidy form by adding water and rubbing that on my hands, that's me stepping into traditional ceremony. And it allows my hands to then reach into that spirit world where the dead are, to see them and speak to them once again.
Hayley, this is a bit of a spoiler. Spoiler alert. Everyone needs to block their ears. Yeah. The hands, you worked with Yolngu people, students collaborated on this film with you, yes?
Yes, so there were two young boys that are down from in Melbourne, living in doing the Melbourne Indigenous Transition School. So the students come from anywhere around top end of Australia, and they come down and do this transition year with Monash University. And I did a program with them where I taught them all about my practice. And so I became familiar with the MITS program, which is what it's called, and the director and film group that I worked with was hosting two of the boys at her house. And it just so happened that I knew that I wanted the hands to come in, and as soon as the boys got home from school, I said, "Do you want to be in the film?" Because we were shooting it right then and there, and they were keen. And the bloopers behind the scenes reels are really, really funny, because it was such an awkward position for them that they kept falling over, and they thought it was so funny grabbing me that they were just laughing the whole time, and that was making me laugh. So it took a few goes. I hope that doesn't take the thrill out of the film. But since working with them, even though it was so brief, the films to follow, I'll be working with more students from the MITS program that I met. And they're all just so magical and so energized. So it was really, really great to be able to pull them in at literally the last minute, like probably 20 minutes before filming that scene, and have them involved, because it was really good.
Okay, well, we have some questions. I also have questions, but I'll privilege your questions. But if you have any to ask anyone, please ask each other. Guti, you have a question here. Can you talk about the connection between the water and the sky in your work?
the water and the waves. When I'm actually walking on the beach, you can see that there is a connection between the sky and the water. And often I will stand with my camera and I will put the camera under the waves, under the water. So you can actually see and almost feel the waves come over you when you're looking at the work. It's important for us as saltwater people to be near the sea. The crocodile is our totem, and so it's very important for us to understand how they live and how they behave and their connection to the salt water. And it's a very important part of our ceremony. And in this particular clip, I'm calling the clouds to come, it's to rain. So I've picked particular parts of the film and connected it with the ceremony practice. My father was involved in the making of this work, and you can hear him on the sticks. And my father was responsible for teaching me all of my cultural knowledge in this respect. My father is also singing, and he's calling us to ceremony. When I was including the soundtrack of my father's singing, it was very interesting to include his words in my clip. I needed to match the sound waves that I could see on the screen with the waves of the water to make sure they were in rhythm.
Thank you. It's a beautiful experience to share your film and that story. This is a question for all of the artists. Coming from families of artists, what has it been like to share your works in ceremony with them? Obviously, it's just opened. Maybe not everyone's seen them, but the ideas and so on.
I can go on that. I had a chat with Ben Quilty last night, and he wanted to point out that my dad was very jealous that I have a thing in ceremony and he doesn't. So, but I'm very proud of him and he's very proud of me. But there's a quiet competition between us. But yeah, no, I don't have any family here this weekend, but they all want to come and see it at some point.
Except for us.
Yeah, you're my family. But yeah, no, it's beautiful. It's yeah, very proud to be asked to do it and to be here, and you know.
I showed my mother, honestly, I showed my mum like last year the film. She claims I didn't and thinks that she only saw it for the first time a few days ago. Yeah, she was really blown away. She is a massive horror fan as well. And I think that because I'm very scared of the dark and ghosts and all of that sort of creepy stuff, and that it happens to me all the time, I've sort of embraced that. And I think that it was nice for my mum to see that I'm running with it now rather than trying to get away from it. But yeah, she was very, very proud. I don't know that my dad gets it. He's not artsy at all, but he tries. He tries to understand. But yeah, they're very, very proud.
Same question. Same question for you, Guti. What has it been like to share your work with your family?
When we first arrived and we saw the film, it was a huge impact because it's so big. And I think my family would be really, really very happy to see the end product. I was very excited to see it. I've explained it to, I've sent photos to all of my family. So they're all aware of it. So they're all very impressed and they're very proud. And Mum too, as well as Mum.
Yes, it's wonderful to have Mum here too. Thank you for coming, and I'm sure you're proud. Here's more stories, more questions are coming in, and Hayley, this one's for you. Horror films are often a cautionary tale. Is Nick Tenacity less of a warning and more of an invitation to embrace the idea of ceremony and connection to ancestors? Obviously, you can read it as well, but...
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. For me, the film is a really beautiful, poetic connection to the spiritual world. But I've definitely catered for people who don't have that experience or don't like that experience or don't believe in that experience to be able to see it in more of the horror genre. So I guess it just depends on where you're coming from and what experience you're bringing yourself to the film. Definitely the idea, it started with my whole history of having spirits around me, but it started when I wanted to honour a meeting that I had with my nan's great-grandfather in this in-between space that I talk about in the film. So for me, the hands that are in the film that represent the spirits, it's up to the viewer to decide whether they are bad spirits or good spirits, whether they're wanted or unwanted.
Another question. This is for everyone. Thank you for sharing about your work today. All the panellists spoke about the importance of experience in your work. What do you want people to take away from the experience of your work in this exhibition? Who would like to go first?
I'll go first. Anything that they take away from it is fine by me. This is probably one of the first works where I haven't put something in particular for people to take away, and it's entirely up to the audience to figure out what it is they walk away with my work, which I feel like is quite liberating, doing that for the first time. So there's nothing in particular.
Yeah, I'd agree. Take anything away from it. I don't want to bash anyone over the head about what it's about, but I think for me as a filmmaker, and now as an artist, am I an artist now?
Always was, always will.
It's very important that the stories I tell are from my point of view, my experiences in life. That's what grounds me and gives me that instinct in the stories I tell, and so I guess I'm trying to show you something literally from my point of view, from my reflection of my eye.
Shall I repeat the question?
I would like people to sit and look at the view that they see in my work, to see the beauty of my country, feel some connection to my country and my culture. And it's important for me that this sort of film is kept and shown, and that connection kept for generations to come. When I go home to Boima, I look at it and it's part of my land. I can see the island. I can see the peninsula on the corner, on the side of the film. I can see lots of parts of my homeland. And I want people to remember all of this. And it is my hope that I can make more of these sorts of things in the future to share with people. With new technology now, it's becoming easier for us to show what it is like to be on our country and for people to learn. And it's up to me now to hone my skills in editing and filmmaking so that I can improve and so that people have a better and a clearer experience of what it's like to be on country.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, I think that we've there's no more questions from the audience. So I think I'll just say how exciting it is and what a privilege and an honour it is to have you all here, particularly with those who've travelled from far away and are a little bit cold. It's wonderful to have you here, and we're really excited. And I think the opportunity, who knows what might come out of a project like Ceremony, but it's wonderful to have you all in this space. I've got to say something here. Yes, so that leaves me to, of course, thank Jodie and to thank Mandy very much. And we've enjoyed the conversation that's been happening as well. And our friend on screen, who I'm not sure of his name, Sean. Yeah, there he is. We will have another session here in the theatre this afternoon at 3:30, where I'll be joined by Joel Bray, S.J. Norman and Daryl Sibasato, and we'll talk a bit about performance work and their works in the exhibition as well. So I invite you to join us then, and please join me in thanking Guri Yunupingu, Louise Maipura, Dylan River and Hayley Miller Baker.